Hello, everyone. I was reading the passage from Exodus 3, where God calls Moses through the burning bush and asks him to go back to Egypt and to lead God's people out of slavery. And something struck me that I hadn't noticed before. When God tells Moses the plan, Moses starts by saying, "Who am I that I should go and speak to Pharaoh?" And God responds that God would be with him. And perhaps because I have always found that thought that God would be with us even when we don't feel able or capable or equipped, perhaps because I've always found that thought really encouraging, I don't think I ever paid close attention to the part that comes after that. God says, "I will be with you, and this will be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will serve God on this mountain." I thought, hang on a second. You mean Moses only gets the sign after he has gone back to Egypt and faced Pharaoh? Only after he has had to face the fears of his past? Only after he has had to return to the site of his bad choices? Only after he has had to face the people whom he once stood before as the son of Pharaoh, and now he will stand before as a shepherd, having spent 40 years in exile in the desert? It is only after that he gets the assurance. He has to go to Egypt with the promise of God's presence, but only on the other side of it all does he get the assurance. What good is that? Well, I guess that Moses really had to rely on God. He really had to rely on the promise of the assurance that was to come. Moses had to step out in faith first. He had to take a risk. He had to put himself out there. He had to trust not in his own capacity, not in his own understanding, not in his own ability to control the outcome. It was risky stuff. But it made it possible for Moses to keep trusting. And it made it possible for Moses to keep risking. When he stood before Pharaoh, when the plagues hit, when he told the people to paint the door frames of their houses, when they had to step ankle deep into the Red Sea before the waves parted. It was like every part of the story strengthened and stretched the faith muscle, because the assurance was what was to come on the other side. It was only in looking back on the whole story that Moses would see and know God's hand in it. So what does it mean for us? Well, it means that faith is risky business, because we don't always get the tangible assurances that we would like along the way. I've always said that the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty, because if we have certainty, we don't need faith. Where is God inviting you to take a risk? Where is God inviting you to step out in faith? It also means sometimes we have to see a season through before we can look back and notice God. When we're in the thick of it, it doesn't always make sense. That doesn't mean that God isn't there. It might just mean we can't make sense of it yet. But what that means is that we have to take the time to stop and reflect on experiences and on seasons. In the Old Testament, the people were continually invited to remember God's faithfulness in the past, to look back and to notice, to tell and to retell the stories of God's goodness. Because in learning to see God in where we have been, we get to stretch and grow those faith muscles to trust God with where we are going, even if we don't know the way. Amen.